What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition to the D Irish Fan Podcast, where I am not an Irish fan. I am D Irish fan. How are you? Excuse me. My name is Danny. Welcome to the show. We're going to get into a couple of things. I kind of want to button up Miami. I think there's three things that really stick out to me that we need to fix, that the Notre Dame coaches need to be looking at if they aren't already, and I'm sure that they are, because they were the three reasons why we lost, essentially. Everyone sees it. Everyone that I've listened to so far this week, and again, I generally like to get a visceral reaction after the game, which is why I recorded on Sunday night, and I just needed that visceral reaction. Now I've had time to reflect, listen, and even go over a little bit of tape. Not that I'm a coach or anything. I'm not going to give you any kind of breakdown. You want some kind of play-to-play scheme coaching breakdown type of stuff, go over to Irish Breakdown. They do a really good job at that. But I am going to give you a fan's perspective of how we all watched this game, what we all saw, and what we all think needs to happen in order for this team to turn it around and have some wins going forward. Most importantly, the most important thing is to beat Texas A&M, obviously, because not only are they're the next game on the schedule, we can't go 0-2. We can't do it. It's not going to happen. The postseason's not going to happen, at least not the way we want it to if we go 0-2. So this is a must-win game. This is a ride or die. It has to happen. I'm not seeing Texas A&M being as good as Miami, but I'm gonna make a whole nother show next week about that. Give me some time to watch Texas A&M's games that they played last week, and then they play again this Saturday. So they'll have 2 full games that they've played, where Notre Dame has had an extra week to prepare. They're on the bye week this week. Essentially, they kind of got a little mini camp, and I'll get into that. There's 3 things that I want to get into, however. Before we do that, please like, share, comment, subscribe to this channel. I do this because I love doing it. I love talking college football. I love talking about Notre Dame football. And I've got siblings and family and stuff that say, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't say, I don't like, I'm not doing this because I'm trying to get clicks or likes or whatever. But I just want to let you know, the reason why I say it is because I'm trying to be authentic and genuine. I'm not someone that's trying to start a podcast to make tons of money. That's very few and far between. I just do this because I love doing it. That's it. That's all. But liking, sharing, subscribing, it helps me get better at doing this. I'm not doing this because I'm trying to make money, but I do want to get better at doing it. Anything worth doing, especially things that you love doing, you want to be good at it. So that's all. Okay, so got that out of the way. Number 1, we had 0 fire in that game. I think eventually we started to get we started to get a little bit of urgency, but the start of the game, we didn't come out with the same intensity. Coach Freeman didn't. I mean, if you remember that Texas A&M game last year, like he was chatting it up with fans. I don't know if he was exactly talking to Notre Dame fans. I don't know if he's talking mostly to Texas A&M fans. I think he was shouting at some Texas A&M fans, which was awesome. And that got the team fired up. They came out on fire. They were moving all over the place. That was hot. That was a hot and humid environment, loud environment, probably louder than the Miami game. So I'm not really sure why they had no fire, but they didn't. And they played really lackluster. What I'm hoping is that when the coaches put the game plan together, the players necessarily didn't like it. And what I mean by that, remember at the end of Hoosiers when Coach Dale is like, okay, we're going to use Jimmy as a decoy. We're going to put him on the top of the screen, and Buddy, you're going to take the last shot. And all the players kind of step back, and they just don't like it. And he's like, what's wrong with you? And Jimmy looks at the coach and says, I'll make it. I think players, they want to hear from their coach, I believe in you. You're gonna take the game-winning shot. And that fires people up. And when you make a game plan that's kind of lackluster, that's kind of like, this isn't really speaking to our strengths. We're not really a zone defensive team. I want to go after my wide receiver. I want to go after the quarterback. I don't want to sit there and fill space. And I'm going to get into that in just a second. I want to play football. To me, I think they played a little bit that way. I think they played as if the game plan that the coaches made wasn't necessarily like, I think they wanted Jimmy Chitwood to take the shot at the end of the game. I think they wanted to be that guy. That's what I think. I don't know. I haven't talked to any players. I haven't talked to coaches. I don't know. But that's the only thing I can think of, because why wouldn't you be away? Why wouldn't you be up? You know, you came within a couple of possessions of being the national champions, of beating Ohio State. You're playing in South Beach, where you had the last time you played, just against Penn State, you came back and you rallied and you won a huge bowl game against a really good football team. And before that, you played Georgia and you beat another really good football team. So they played with fire almost the entire postseason last year, for probably the exception of the first half of the Penn State game and then the first half of the Ohio State game. And other than that, every single game last year, minus Northern Illinois, they played with a lot of fire. So I don't know. Part of me thinks that this team feeds off of that kind of thing. I think they want to play football. I think they want to make the tackle. I think they want to catch the touchdown. I think they want to go on a 90 play yard scoring drive. I think they want that stuff. And the game plan was really, really boring. It just was. It was like, instead of going, they tried to be too smart by half. Instead of going with what we know works, we're going to psych out Miami because they're going to be prepared for that, and we're going to do something completely different. And that's how they played. That's just how they played, and they didn't. And you can see it. You can always see these things. I was a little timid, and I was like, they don't really look that, when they were coming out on the field. They weren't bouncing up and down. There was no pop. They're just kind of there, just kind of staring. All right, here we are. And I don't know, I've brought this up before, but I don't know if you guys remember the 2012 national title game against Alabama. Same thing. I mean, that team looked like they were playing Frankenstein and Dracula. Like, there was no fire. It didn't look like they wanted to be there. They weren't chatting it up. You saw Alabama clapping their hands, and they were shaking their heads. They knew they were going to win. They knew it. They just, they came out and they're like, we're going to win this game. I don't even know why you guys are here. And Notre Dame, the players, they saw that. They responded to it. And what happened. We got absolutely annihilated. Same thing. Not exactly the same thing, but kind of the same thing that happened against Miami. There was no pop. There was no fire. I don't know. I don't think they looked at Miami and saw, this juggernaut of a football program that was going to win the national championship. But I think it just looked like they didn't want to be there. So that's an issue that's got to get fixed. Number two, the trenches. I'm going number one and number two, number three are going to be the same thing on both sides on different sides of the ball. Number two, the trenches. I'm going with the defensive line. I have no idea. Defensive coaches know better. Okay, during the Weiss era, he was an offensive coordinator for his entire career. He had no idea what he's doing on defense, and it clearly showed. The worst Notre Dame, some of the worst. I'm getting the heebie-jeebies, but some of the worst Notre Dame defenses, minus Brian Van Gorder, were on that Charlie Weiss coach team, and because he had guys playing out of position all over the place. I mean, all over they were just out of position. They weren't playing the right positions. I don't you remember in a 4-3. Traditional 4-3 style defense, they had Harrison Smith, who is an all-pro, probably Hall of Fame safety, playing outside outside, I think it wasn't called the will at the time, but it was an outside linebacker position. That was back in the day when linebackers needed to be 6'3", 240. And Harrison Smith is 6'2", 220, maybe, on a good day. He's probably around 210, 215. And he was playing outside linebacker. Anyway, my point is they're playing out of position. And offense, I understood why Weiss did that, because he didn't know what he was doing. He just didn't know what he was doing. He trusted a bunch of guys that ended up not being very good coaches, and what happened. Now, Marcus Freeman knows better. Chris Ash, they know better. I have no idea in what universe why you have Kurt Heinisch. His brother's Kurt, but I have no idea why you have Heinisch starting at nose tackle and asking him to occupy space. And what I mean by that is a defensive tackle and a nose tackle. Their primary goal is not pass rush. It's not even necessarily run stop. The primary goal is occupying space. That's why, linemen, the offensive linemen, they're like, they're tall. They're 6'4" to 6'7", 6'8". There's an offensive lineman over at Nebraska who's 6'10", because they have to be able to bat down defensive linemen's arms. They got to be wide and long to be able to prevent linebackers and defensive linemen from getting around them. So that's why they're tall and long and big. Defensive linemen, now they need to be compact, ideally between 6 feet and 6'3", anywhere between, really, you should not be smaller than 290. If you're smaller than 290, then you should be closer, you should be a defensive end, or you should be one of those fast, twitchy defensive tackles, which Heinisch is. And I'll get to that in a second, but so that's what you need from your defensive linemen. They need to occupy space. That's their number one goal. You find a hole, you plug yourself up into that hole, you become immovable, and you make the offensive lineman move you. And if you're unmovable, then you're going to allow your defensive ends and your linebackers to come up and clean up and make the tackle. That's your primary goal. If you're smaller, like Heinisch, your primary goal is to be fast, to be quick, to shoot that gap, to slant, to cut, and get to the running back or get to the quarterback. That's your primary goal if you're smaller, because you're smaller. You can't take space. Being smaller, by dint, makes you faster. And you can't, and you're not big enough to occupy the space, especially against guys. I mean, these offensive lines now these linemen are huge. They're huge. They're 320 to 340, sometimes 350. And Miami had a couple of them. You're asking Heinisch to occupy the space, getting double teamed by guys who are 3 inches taller, 4 inches taller, and outweigh him by 60 pounds. It's math. It's called physics. It's just not going to happen. Now, he can shoot the gap and be faster than those guys. That's a game plan. That's what he needs to do. That's what should have been done, and it didn't. And they asked him to be a space filler, to occupy space, to play as if he was 6'3", 320, and he's not. So people are like, Heinisch, he's on skates all night long. He's getting blown off the ball. Well, that's why. The coaches were putting him in this position. It was bad. It was horrible, and there are any given play. There's 4 to 3 defensive linemen. If you have a double team on a guy like Heinisch and blow him off the ball, guess what? You have a massive hole that you now have to have your linebackers come up and fill, and that's going to be 3, 4, 5 yards every single time. I don't care how good your linebackers are. I don't care how big they are. It is going to be 3 to 4 to 5 yards every single time, and Miami was perfectly fine running those plays, and that's what happened. And you also get a worn-down defense, and that's also what happened. So you've got to fix that. You got to identify that. You got to see that. I don't mind Heinisch playing it. And as a matter of fact, again, those guys, they thrive off of stunting and slashing and cutting. The final play of the Georgia game, Heinisch is the one that made that sack. If you go back and watch that game, he does it on a stunt. He runs around the defensive tackle, or maybe the defensive end, I can't remember. But he runs around him. Now he's got a lineman in space, and that's when he's able to win. And he does. And he makes the sack, makes the play, end of the game. It was a great play. That's what we need Heinisch doing. We have space fillers. We have guys that are in that three. Gabe Rubio played the best game because Miami went after Gabe Rubio playing Gabe Rubio's game, which is space filling. He's the guy to do that. If that's the kind of defense you want space filling, zone type of defense, then you have to go back to a traditional 4-3. They did that for a lot of the game, except they had Carson Hobbs out there for half the game instead of Devonta Smith, which reasons, don't know why they did that either. But if you're going to be playing zone, you need a really good nickelback, or you need a traditional 4-3 with space filling defensive linemen. Now we have that, so I think. Again, I think going back to the whole game, the game plan analogy, I don't think the defensive players like that, because I think they knew they were being set up. I think they knew they were being put in there and asked to do something they couldn't do. If I were Heinisch, I wouldn't want to do that. Hey, I need you to go up against a 340-pound guy all night long and not get blown off the ball. Sorry, coach. there's no one nobody wants to be put in that position. Nobody wants to be set up for failure. And they set up Heinisch for failure. That's on the coaches. Good news about that is both on the fire side, number one, or having energy, and this defensive line scheming. Those are fixable things. Those are fixable things. You can fix that in one game. You can, especially if you have 2 weeks to do that. So that's good news. But that has got to get fixed. Our defensive line has got to be able to get pressure on the quarterback with 4 guys, 3 or 4. We just have to. If a zone type of defensive scheme is what Notre Dame is gravitating towards. If that's if that's Chris Ash and that's his identity, and that's what he wants to do, then you have to have space fillers. There's just no other, having Heinisch do that is dumb. If we go back to what our identity is, which is going after players, which is man-to-man defense, which, by the way, watch the game, and the best defense that we played all night long was when we were in man defense, traditional man attacking defense. That's when we played the best. It's also when we gave up our touchdowns. Yes, I'll grant any naysayers that, or people who like running zone. We gave up both of our touchdowns playing man defense. However, they had to make spectacular plays to do that. Look, I will say it 9 times out of 10, Carson Beck throws that exact same play, the one where Daniels jumps up and just grabs the ball with his fingertips. 9 times out of 10, that's an interception or incomplete pass. I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, that is an interception or an incomplete pass. If it were Xavier Watts in the backfield, that's an interception because he's going to attack the ball, which for some reason Adon Schuler did not. He just kind of sat there and waited for the ball to come to him. If he just attacks that ball, just attacks it, it's incomplete. It's incomplete. At worst, it's incomplete. At best, he picks it off, and it's a different ball game, completely different ball game. So I don't know. I think the defensive line woes are just more scheme than it is players. We have plenty of players down there. We do. It's just more of the scheme. So that's got to change. Number 3. This is by far right now, in the year 2025, this college football season for Notre Dame, this is by far the biggest problem with the Notre Dame football team. And the reason why isn't necessarily scheme. It's not anything like that, or necessarily putting players into doing things that they're incapable of doing. Let me start with this. There's this phenomenon in football where guys can get turned around. Specifically on defense. So if a cornerback is coming down to make a tackle on a wide receiver or a running back, just a ball carrier, and he takes a bad angle, if the running back is smart, he can turn that guy around. And what I mean by that is, all of a sudden the cornerback or the safety gets turned around to the ball carrier. Their back is to the ball carrier, and all the ball carrier has to do is go the opposite direction that the cornerback is going, and the cornerback is now running down the field, giving the ball carrier yards and looking stupid and foolish, while the running back gashes him and either scores a touchdown or gets a big play. How that's correctable is the cornerback has to turn around real fast, break down, and make the tackle. Now he's going to get trucked, and it's going to suck, it's going to hurt, but he's going to save a touchdown. Now, how does that relate to to Notre Dame's offensive line? I think you're seeing the coaching equivalent of being turned around with Joe Rudolph. I think he is completely backwards. We have guys on the field. It is completely backwards. We have tackles playing guard and guards playing tackle. It's backwards. It's upside down. He's turned around. He's turning which way, trying to get his footing, because 2 years ago we had a year and a half ago we lost a lot of guys. We lost 2 junior starting left and right tackles. We lost 2 of them, and we lost Charles Jagasaw for the season to be our starting left tackle last year. We lost him at the very beginning of the season. We lost 3 tackles like that. 3 really talented tackles like that. Gone. And I think that has hurt Notre Dame in more ways than we really know right now because of how turned around we are. We have Gerby Lambert. I don't know what universe that we live in right now that Gerby Lambert is a guard. I just and not just a guard, but Anthony Knapp is your left tackle. Just why? Why is that? Why is that a thing? Why is that a thing? And Gerby Lambert, he doesn't necessarily need to be left tackle, but he's not the right tackle either. He's a guard. Well, it's all about getting the best five on the field, Danny. You know, I've said this before. You know, there's a lot of people who are a fan of the strategy. The strategy is you recruit a bunch of tackles and then you convert those tackles into guards. That's something that the Notre Dame staff, even the Brian Kelly era, that's something that Notre Dame has done for a long time, and I personally do not like it. We've had some good offensive lines. You know, there's a lot of guys. Danny, Notre Dame, we're O-line you. Yes, but why not just get a great guard out of high school? Why not just go get a center? You know, we need a center. Go recruit a center. I don't understand that. I don't get it because you get guys playing out of position. Zach Martin is a great example. Now, I love Zach Martin. He is a great ambassador for the university. He was a great he was a good offensive lineman. I'm not going to say great, and I'm about to tell you why. He was a good offensive lineman. He was a good left tackle. He started left tackle his senior year, I think maybe the last 2 or 3 years of his career. But he was a starting left tackle. He was a good one, even a really good one. Then he goes to the NFL, and guess what? He's a Hall of Fame guard. He's a Hall of Famer. He's not a good to really good left tackle. He's a Hall of Fame all-time great guard. Why would you not want that guy at guard? Why does he need to be at tackle? Now, that's a different era. We were a lot thinner at offensive line. I understood the reasoning for putting him at tackle, and that's really because we didn't have anybody else at that time. So I understand putting people in positions when there's nobody else there to fill the position. I get it. I understand that. But instead of having a really good tackle, I want a really good guard. Instead of having a decent guard, I want a great center. You know, that's what and what I'm seeing as a product on the field are guys playing out of position. And I think that's the biggest problem. That is a huge problem because now you're getting into evaluation. You're getting into a coach's ability to evaluate. Yes, you want to get the 5 best linemen on the field, but you want to make sure that those guys are comfortable playing the positions that they're playing. Because if you don't, you're going to get guys on roller skates. You're going to get guys playing out of position. Look, Emil Wagner, he has played a lot of good football for Notre Dame, and he's got a lot of good football left in him. But I have never been a fan of another recruiting strategy. He weighed 220 when he was in high school. And now you're asking a kid to gain 80 pounds in 2 to 3 years and get used to playing at the highest athletic ability that he can. And I think you're starting to see a little bit of wear and tear on his body. Did you see that last play at the end of the game? Maybe it was the second to the last play. I mean, I don't know. I can't remember the defensive lineman's name for Miami, but he didn't even use his hands to get around Wagner. He just kind of elbowed him out of the way. He just elbowed Emil Wagner, and Emil Wagner almost fell down and completely got blown up. Like, he was completely destroyed on that play. Totally destroyed. It's because his top half of his body is bigger than the bottom half of his body. And that creates problems in game. It also creates problems down the line in a career for a football player. He looks like he's 80. His knees look terrible. And don't take my word for it. Watch Emil Wagner on that last play, and you tell me if he looked okay. He did not look okay to me. He looks like, not necessarily he's playing out of position, but he looks like a guy who's carrying too much body weight. And I think you're seeing that in real time. Can he play a good season for Notre Dame this year? Absolutely. He's totally capable of that. I'm not knocking him, but we're going to play really good teams going down the stretch. And we're going to play really fast, good defensive ends again. And your body doesn't get better as the season progresses. This is football. It's a hard sport, and it breaks down. That's what the summer and off-season conditioning is for, is to build your body up and gradually let it kind of break down as the season goes on, and because as the wear and tear goes on. And he looked like he was in. He looked like he was in playoff mode. You know, he looked awful. Maybe maybe he got sick. This is the season. We're going through a huge wave right now of a couple sicknesses. I had stomach flu last week. Maybe he's sick. Maybe the humidity of Miami got to him. These are human beings. These are kids. They get tired. They get, how much sweat you're exerting there on the field. That's probably what happened. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. I see a guy though that is not. I see a guy who's playing too top heavy, and we got really skinny legs, chicken legs, and that's fine if you're fast and quick. But he's not, and he certainly wasn't at the end of that on that play and at the end of the game. So there's got to be something being done about that. Gerby Lambert is our starting right. Well, started at right guard. I just, here's the thing. When I'm talking about Matt Wagner, I'm talking about Knapp. I'm not knocking the players at all. They're very talented players, especially Knapp. Knapp has got NFL skill. He just doesn't have NFL skill at left tackle. He's guard. And I said it before. I said it in the last game. I think the strategy was to have Jagasaw and Lambert on the field at the same time. I think because a universe where we have a healthy Jagasaw and Lambert is just either your backup right tackle, your backup right guard, and Knapp is still your starting left tackle, and you have Sullivan Absher, that would be a universe that now you're getting into bad coaching territory. Now you're getting into Joe Rudolph not knowing what he's doing. And I'm actually bringing it up. I'm actually talking about it. There's a couple guys pretty critical of Joe Rudolph. Again, Brian Driscoll over at Irish Breakdown, he's pretty critical of Joe Rudolph. This is not knocking him as a man or as a person. He's, by all accounts, he's a very nice guy. But he's turned around. He's turned around. We have guards playing tackle and tackles playing guard, and that's not good. We got to fix that. The good news is, I think Knapp. If they're going, I'm sure they're going to keep Knapp there. They just believe in this kid, and they're going to keep him at left tackle. I think they're going to keep him there. So, having that said, I think he'll be fine again. I think. I'm turned around. I think they'll be okay against Texas A&M if they keep Knapp there. The problem is now, what do you do about Sullivan Absher and Gerby Lambert? Because Jagasaw's not going to be ready till probably late October. So he's not coming to the rescue anytime soon. And by all accounts from what I've heard, is they're just going to keep Lambert and Absher at guard, and they're going to put, when Jagasaw's ready and healthy, they'll put him at left tackle. And in the meantime, they're just going to keep Knapp there. I think he'll be okay through Texas A&M. Like I said, we have to win that game. So I think they're gonna value continuity over talent, unfortunately, because the continuity, I think, will get us a W, and I think that's all that he cares. I think that's all Marcus Freeman cares about is the W, which is fine. We need to get that W, and then as the season progresses, we got Purdue coming up. I think we got to play Arkansas. So there's some time to kind of reevaluate things and get guys coached up. But I just don't know. We've got Will Black. I've heard, again, from Irish Breakdown, I've heard that Will Black is, he's a five-star tackle, a five-star left tackle in high school, and they got him a guard. Why are you putting all these tackles at guard? Like, if there's a need to get your guards, I understand that, but why do you have Will Black at guard and Anthony Knapp, who is a guard, at tackle? I just don't understand. That's got to get fixed. That's bad. That's not good. Good news. We have these 2 weeks. We kind of got another little mini camp. The beginning of every year starts with the camp, and that's 2 weeks long. And you don't, obviously, you're not in school, so you're spending more time playing football and studying football in camp, in actual traditional camp. But we have 2 weeks now to reevaluate, watch the film, look at players, look at game plans, and to see develop the best plan going forward, especially on offensive line. Me personally, this is what I would prefer. This is what I would prefer. Lambert at right guard and Absher at left tackle, or vice versa. Put Absher at right guard and Lambert at left tackle. You cannot have those guys playing one position. You cannot have that. Not now, not right now. Not until Jagasaw comes back. You want them to battle it out another position. That's totally fine when Jagasaw comes back. Right now, those are your two biggest and most athletic offensive linemen, especially Lambert. The biggest and most athletic linemen are tackles. So you have to put one of those guys at left tackle. At least evaluate Lambert next to Knapp. Let's look at Knapp, and then let's look at what the difference would be with Lambert there. Styles Prescott got the last play of the game he was in there in the last drive of the game against Miami. He's listed as the true traditional backup. I'm not understanding this year. Why are we having true freshmen starting left tackle? And if that's the case, okay, why is it not Will Black? So Joe Rudolph is turned around. He's got to get turned around. Now, here's the good news. You can get unturned around. You can turn yourself around and make the play. Let's go back to that analogy that I made previously. The cornerback, he's got to be able to turn around, square his hips, and tackle the ball carrier to prevent the touchdown. This is possible. They can do it. It's going to suck, though. It sucks because you're going to get trucked, and it's going to hurt. But you're going to get up, and you're going to be able to get out there and make another play and hopefully get off the field. Joe Rudolph has the coaching equivalent to that as well. We have 2 weeks here to reevaluate, to look at things. Maybe we have... With Sullivan Absher, for example, he's been all over the field in his career. He's a junior right now. And for the second that he got on the Notre Dame football campus, it's as if we have no idea what we want to do with him. He's been at tackle, he's been at right tackle, he's been at guard, he's been at center. Some of that has been out of necessity because of injuries, but I think his development has been severely stunted, and they need to pick a position for him and keep him there, which is why I want him to stay at guard and Lambert to go at tackle, because he needs that. He needs a constant coaching up at one position, and that's his position. He's not going anywhere else. Lambert is more talented. He's more versatile. He can play right tackle. He can play right guard. He can play left tackle. Put him at left tackle. Evaluate him against Knapp and fix this thing. We got to get going. The line has got to get fixed. It is huge. It is so huge when it comes to the season. We can fix this line. There's talent. There are pieces. There is depth. We have pieces there to fix it and become a really good offensive line, to give CJ Carr time. You see what that kid can do with time. Go watch that Malachi Fields play. With time, this kid is going to be a legend. Not a star, a legend. I guarantee it. Watch. I've already gone too long. I'm going to wrap it up. That's it. Those are my 3 things. I'm done with Miami. Okay, Miami's over. Next week, I'm going to record an episode on the Texas A&M game. I want to watch them play, get a good feel of how we're going to play, maybe listen to some news, see if we're going to have, someone start at a different position, and go from there. In the meantime, till next time, I love you, and go Irish.